Looking for a way through. Zac Purton trying to finish on. It's Aero Velocity, the leader. Emperor Max running a great race on the outside. Lucky 9 can't go on with it. Rich Tapestry down the outside, but Aero Velocity is clear over Emperor Max, and Aero Velocity is going to take the Chris Flyer. Aero Velocity for Zac Purton wins it a length and a half. Emperor Max another second in the big race. Third Lucky 9, fourth Rich Tapestry, just ahead of Kiwi Karma, followed by Zac Purton, El Padrino, Magneto and Toto. Couldn't get in from a wide draw and finish with the tail enders.
Start right away with something obvious, right, Paul? Can you just tell us, and I know you've talked about it before, the backstory of Aero Velocity, how it came about? I'm sure you're bored talking about it, and
it's got quite an interesting history. We bought him. I went to the sales in that year, the Karaka yearling sales, and Brother Lance had looked at virtually all the horses and narrowed them down. He said, "He's a pin source." He said, "We will be buying him." He said, "I don't care what he costs, but we've got to work to a budget. We own them ourselves, and we on-sell them." So the horse went through the sale, and he was 120,000, and he was quite reasonable. And anyway, we owned him ourselves, or the majority of them ourselves. We took him through to the barrier trials, and he won very easily at the trials. At that stage, I wasn't going that well here in Hong Kong. And I said to Lance, I need him badly. I need a good horse. So I was armed with the DVD, and I went all around Hong Kong. I hawked him to everybody, and everybody looked at him, everybody turned him down. So I rang Lance, I said, we'll qualify him as a PP, because that gives a whole new set of owners who've got that permit the chance to buy him. So we took him to the races. Won very easily his first start. Again, I was on the road, went round, all around Hong Kong, hawked them all over the place. Nobody came to the party. Then a guy, Daniel Yong, who owns the horse, rang me out of the blue. He's only a young guy. He's got a PP permit. This is his first horse he's owned in his own right. So we sat down and we had a coffee for an hour and talked about this and that. And at the end of the conversation, he said, "I've got a PP permit. Can you find me a horse?" I said, "Have I got a horse for you?" Anyway, he went to we vetted him, he failed the vet to some degree, and I said to Daniel, we know this horse very well. Given his history, I'm sure the problem he's got on the vet report won't affect him racing-wise. And Daniel said, if you think that, I'm happy with that. He purchased the horse, the rest is history. So there's a lot of pretty sick people sitting in the stands every time he goes around here in Hong Kong.
You mean the people who turned them down?
People who turned them down, yeah.
So do you feel a sense of vindication then?
No, we can't be like that. But
oh yes, you can.
I'm very happy that Daniel, this is his first horse, and he's handled himself. The hardest horse to race in Hong Kong is a good horse. Exactly, vouch for that. But he's handled himself tremendously well. He's been patient. The first year he had probably 4 or 5 starts, couldn't win a race, and quite often those young owners are influenced by other people, and the horse moves and that sort of thing, but he's stuck to the ship, never interferes, certainly enjoys his racing very much and makes the most of it. But he's a great horse and he's got a great owner.
And the Zac man, when did you get involved with Aero Velocity?
Well, funny enough, I knew Daniel prior to the horse coming to Hong Kong. I've met him many times, had coffee and lunch with him, and I knew the horse was going to Paul. But I never rode him in his first season. He'd asked me a couple of times to ride him, but I had another ride for one reason or another. And then in his second season, I waited until I thought he was ready. And then I spoke to Paul about riding the horse, and obviously because I knew Daniel, and Paul was happy to put me on him. And he was just ready to win. The way he was trialling, the way he was going at the time, he was ready to win. So I was lucky that I got him on him at the right time, and I was able to win a number of races in a row. How many did we win in a row?
I think that season his first start he ran 3rd, and then he won at least 5 in a row, and then ran 2nd.
Yeah. So he's just been a terrific horse for me right from the start. He's always given 100%, and I never thought he was going to be as good as he is. I remember an international day 2 years ago, I belted the life out of him to win by a nose in a Class 3 race. And I thought, there might be one more win left in him, but, Paul and his stable have done a terrific job with the horse. Paul was always very patient with him. He never rushed him. They gave him the time that he needed, and just kept letting the horse come through the grades. and to me, he's been the most unassuming horse. To get to the heights that he's got to now, it's incredible where he's come from.
How would you describe him from, let's say, the first big win that he had to his last big win? What do you think has been the difference in this horse? Do you ride him differently, or you just know him differently, or he knows you?
I think he does know me, but I do know him very well. Obviously, I've had an association with him for 18 months now, and I've gotten to know him. He's quite a mad horse. He's hard to handle in the mornings. I don't ride him in track work at all. It's been well documented that he's busted up a couple of his marfoos. So it's a matter of, it's hard to get on him and getting him out onto the track. But once he gets out onto the track, he completely transforms into a teddy bear. He's really quiet, and you know, I spend that time going from the parade area around to the gates, just trying to get him to settle down and keep him calm. And you know, he's very good now. He's a different horse than what he was 18 months ago. But in the last 6 months, I think he's just got a great will to win. And I touched on, he gives 100% every time he goes out there. And he's not one-dimensional. He doesn't have to lead. We've seen him at the start of this season, he missed the start at his first start because he was so highly strung in the gate. I came from last and he still won. I've come from 5th or 6th in the run, or even midfield, and won on him. So from that respect, he's a very easy horse to ride. But with a horse like him, he's got a big action. He's quite a thick set horse. He's got a big set of shoulders. He's a really nice horse to ride, but the best way to ride him is to be positive on him. If he jumps well, to let him be in a good position, and then he just doesn't like to be beaten. When a horse comes to challenge him, he just wants to win. He fights them off.
And as when he travels, and he's travelled now to Japan and Singapore, right? How good a traveller is he? Because usually some horses just don't travel.
Yeah, well, I spent my whole life on the road travelling horses, probably from when I was 17 to about 35, and you know, you take them out of their home environment, and it's quite difficult for them. But I've never travelled with a horse that's just arrived somewhere, eaten everything that's put in front of him, and acted like he's at home from day one. You know, I think he spoilt, you know, Pierre and the marfoos that have gone away with him. I said, it's not normally this easy, but he travels fantastically well. And when you go into these places, Singapore and Japan, everything's very organised. You know, they're used to the box environment and all that sort of thing. But you know, he might as well be at home as be away. So he's quite rare in that regard.
And it was quite surprising, because when Paul first told me he wanted to travel the horse, I was like, oh my God, you know, you're getting this all wrong. Because he'd been so mad, I thought he would just lose the plot. But as Paul said, he's been quite the opposite. He loves getting his passport stamped.
Go along the fence to stick along there. That might be not the place to be. Huck Sun Moon finds the front. Huck Sun Moon at the 250-metre mark. Mickey Isle on the scene, and Aero Velocity there as well. Huck Sun Moon leads at the moment from Mickey Isle. Zac Purton getting desperate on Aero Velocity. They've got to catch Huck Sun Moon. Aero Velocity jumping out of the ground. Aero Velocity goes to Huck Sun Moon. Hong Kong gets up and wins. Zac Purton wins with Aero Velocity. Huck Sun Moon second. Mickey Isle third. Then Sudden Storm with Capano Richard. Daiwa Majore made up a heap of ground late. In the middle was Wakano Brave.
The win in Japan, that was an incredible. I mean, I honestly thought he wouldn't win. What did you feel? Just take us through that race.
Well, I got to Japan on the Thursday, and Paul and I went out to Tripio Racecourse and walked it on the Friday. And when we walked the track, it was really evident that the inside position on the rail, the grass was really worn. It was basically down to dirt. And one off the fence was really worn as well, but not quite as bad. But once you got out to 3 horses off the fence and wider, there was a really long grass coverage on the track. And we'd drawn barrier 4 in that race, and the other favoured runners had drawn barriers 16, 17, 18 and 19, I think, from memory. And I basically said to Paul, I said, I don't think they can beat us just from the barrier draw, because we were going to be racing on dirt with no resistance against our legs, and they were going to be running out wide, as the Japanese horses do, against what would have been, in my opinion, thicker grass and heavier going. But then the rain came, and that changed everything, because when it rains there, the inside section of the track gets a little bit wetter. And Paul and I had watched the previous couple of races leading up to our race, and we'd seen that the horses coming down the middle of the track in the straight had obviously done best, and it appeared that there was a bit of a bias there, and that was the best part. But from the start, I didn't want to get away from the fence, because it was his first time going left-handed in a long time. And I knew, because the track was in the state it was, that the other Japanese horses would race out away from the fence. So one, being near the fence, it would be able to guide him and give him something to follow around, but he'd also have a lot of galloping room. He wouldn't be out in amongst all the other horses. The downside to that was, once we got into the straight, obviously I was on the worst part of the track. And because there was no grass on the fence, he couldn't get his footing, he couldn't get his grip. So once we straightened up, I then switched him out to the middle part of the track, and at the same time there's a rise in the track. It rises maybe 2 metres. So we're going from the wettest part of the track to quite possibly the best part of the track inside the last furlong. So once I got him out, he could get his toe in, he could get grip, and the ground was getting better. He changed his legs and he just took off. He just accelerated.
On that point, did you almost stop riding him and pull him out wide and then come back again, or?
Not necessarily. I was still riding him along, but I was trying to keep him as balanced as I could whilst coming out. I was very careful not to go at too sharp of an angle. One, because I had a lot of horses behind me and beside me. I didn't want to knock anyone down or cause any interference. And two, like I said, because I wanted to keep him balanced. I wanted to keep him going forward, but also coming out to the part that I wanted to get to.
How did it feel when the horse won? I mean, for you, for Daniel,
I sort of watched
for
the
Zac.
race. I watched the race there, and I was standing with Pierre. And as they cornered, he was under pressure far further out than what he normally is under pressure in a race. And I said to Pierre, I said, I don't think today. And then he came out, just from my observation, I thought, well, he's going to run third. But when he changed stride, you find horses that change stride, the good ones go forward and the bad ones go back. And when he changed stride and knuckled down, I went from sort of, 10 seconds thinking, pack your bags and go home, to all of a sudden we're going to win the race. So it was pretty exciting.
Just one quick one on, you mentioned Pierre as your assistant trainer. How much do you think he's helped what I call the Renaissance period of the O'Sullivan yard?
I think for sure he's been a fantastic help. But when Pierre arrived, which is nearly 2 years ago now, I remember in the off season sitting down having a good hard think, about what I was doing, from work to feeding to this to that, and I thought, I'm just not getting this right. And I sat down and I, in my own mind, had a formula for everything, and I thought, well, if this doesn't work, I'm never going to get hold of this joint. But certainly Pierre coming along, I haven't been blessed with ATs over the years. I can say that on camera very honestly, and he's sort of he's been a fresh face. He's done all the right things. He was educated overseas, university educated. He's come back through. He taught himself how to ride in the riding schools. He lost 40 pounds to be a riding boy. He worked for his father, he was never AT for his father, so he didn't have any steep promotion, through his family. And he's done the hard yards, and coming through to me. And I said to Pierre, probably 18 months before he came to work, I said, I was a good friend of his father's, Gary. I said, is it okay if I approach Pierre to be my assistant trainer? So I approached him, and his father had one more year to go, and he said to me, Paul, he said, I'd like to finish this year with my father. I never approached him again, because no doubt he was highly sought after, amongst the trainers here. And he came to me about 4 months before the end of the season. He said, is the job still available? So, it's been great for me, and I think it's been great for him as far as his future goes. He's come to a struggling stable and turned the whole thing around, or been one of the factors that's turned it around.
Tell me about the struggling stable, because you were struggling.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've been up and down, and I can tell you this, the ride on the way up is much more fun than the ride on the way down, But it's a vicious circle. When things aren't going well, you'll lose horses, you have less opportunities, and we were probably as far down the ladder as what you'll get to possibly be able to turn it around. But I think Aero Velocity was a factor in turning the stable round. Horse called Santa Fe Sun, he won 4 that season. I think he won 4 in a row.
Fade deep.
Well, fade deep this year. But success breeds success here in Hong Kong, and if you're doing well, and if you get one good horse, I've seen 2 trainers, without naming them since I've been here, who have been struggling, who have got a top-notch Group 1 horse, and it's just turned their whole business around. They're both sitting on 60 horses and have been for 4 or 5 years and been very successful. So Aero Velocity was a big thing for me.
I come back to Fay Deep because I just want to ask you about Derek Leung, because you've been extremely loyal to him, and I think he's been loyal to you as well, and it seems to work. I've always thought very highly of Derek when he first started out as an apprentice with you. What are your feelings about Derek as a jockey?
Oh, look, I think Derek is, you got Derek, you got Keith Young, Vincent Ho. They're our next generation of Chinese jockeys for sure. And all 3 of them are very capable. You give them the colours, they can do the job pretty well. But, Derek, I guess you have an affiliation with him because he was apprentice to me and worked for my brother in New Zealand. And but he's been very loyal. I'm very happy to support him, mainly for the fact that I know that he will do the job very well, particularly when you're getting those horses sort of below 120, 118. He's a very good fella, very good.
And you and Zac, how did you guys come together? Because Zac didn't do much riding for you, right?
I've ridden for Paul right from the first time I came to Hong Kong. He was one of the first trainers to give me support. I rode my first Group 1 winner in Hong Kong for Paul.
Which one was that?
Fellowship.
Sight winner and Quickly Able One joins the pair. Clear from Fellowship running on, and Good Barbar's 3 off them. Eagle Mountain won't run a place. Able One in front of Fellowship, the outside. Clear from Sight winner. Good Barbar can't get them. Fellowship hits the lead from Able One. Then Sight winner boxing on, but Fellowship's coming away for Zac Purton. It's Fellowship from Sight winner. Third, a toss-up between Able One and Good Barbar, who got going late. Egyptian Ra went too keenly in the lead. Then Fleet Command from Sunny King Special Days, Street Cat outclassed, and Eagle Mountains failed to fire a shot.
In the Stewards Cup, he's a horse that we took to Japan as well.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
But yeah. Paul, he's a lot like me. We're both very loyal people. He's given me great support right from the start, and I've stuck with him through some of the quieter times and now obviously the good times. And winning that race in Japan for me was one of the most touching moments of my career, because I was able to give something back to Paul for everything that he gave me. He went through a difficult time, and to see the emotion on his face when I came back in, it was terrific that day. And it's obviously it means a lot to both of us.
And the race in Singapore, he seemed to just improve.
Well, it's amazing to think that he could be getting better as the season goes on. And I trialled him just before he left to go to Singapore, and I said to Paul, I just can't believe this horse has got better. It's probably the most confident I've ever been in a Group 1 race. I went there, we're racing against local Singapore horses, which aren't really up to standard. We're racing against a couple of Hong Kong horses that were a little bit out of form. So there wasn't much in the race, really. It was just a matter of whether he was going to be there travel over there and be in the same shape as he was when he left here in Hong Kong. And it's where the credit goes to Paul and his stable. Paul's got a great record whenever he's travelled throughout the world, from New Zealand to Australia, Hong Kong, Japan.
What are the next plans for Aero Velocity?
Well, as logic would have it, he's just got to. We've got to sit down with Daniel and have a talk to him. But last season, I planned raced him with the idea of taking him to Japan and possibly Singapore. So, for the long season he only raced 6 times. And so we gave up probably 3 or 4 domestic opportunities to race him, to prolong his season and his form, to go to Japan and to go to Singapore. But, as I say, as logic would have it, you just try and do exactly what you did last season, this coming season. So it'll be harder, he's a year older, but I can see no reason why he shouldn't be just as good at 7 as what he was at 6, given his, the light program that he's had throughout his career, and given his pedigree, which is they just get better as they get older. So my advice will be to do exactly what we did this year.
And what are the upcoming stars from the stable?
Don't give too much away.
Yeah, Ted, it's a little bit of a gap from Aero Velocity back to the next one, but as stable numbers have increased, younger horses have come through. I think we'll start the season next season with almost 50% of them unraced. So they're all good until proven otherwise. So hopefully there's something good amongst them.